button just in case something intelligent is said. No guarantees there. All right, good stuff. All right, so my voice is coming back, but I still have a little bit of like that raspiness going on right now. I don't know, Jack, I was at the airport with Jack on the way back, Jack Ma on the way home, and he goes, I kind of like the raspy voice. You sound like a Matthew McConaughey type. And I'm like, well, all right, so let's go with that. So I'd rather look like him than sound like him. But what are you gonna do? Take whatever I can get, apparently. My wife agrees with that. But that's where we're going down a bad path here. It's all good. All right, so last week we had the Mike Ferry Superstar Retreat in Las Vegas. Depending on what day you went, could have been 4 days or 5 days, or if you're part of the Mark and Al team, you went, stayed for an hour, went to the pool. But that's a different story. We're just going down different paths here. It's not really that important. Good stuff. So anyways, what I want to accomplish today is, look, whether you went to the retreat, you didn't go to the retreat, whether you're a Mike Ferry person, not a Mike Ferry person, it really doesn't matter. First of all, let me back up here for a second. And maybe I'm talking to the wrong crowd here because you're here, but it really doesn't matter what your thoughts are on a particular coaching system or coach or things along those lines. There's no way you could go away for 4 days and listen to a sales trainer and be in a room with a couple thousand people and not come away with some ideas for your business. Okay, regardless of what you think of that. So if for some of you are going, well, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm not really a Mike Ferry person. That's not, doesn't matter. Okay, because some of you might be hardcore Mike Ferry people, and you're going, well, I would never go to a Tom Ferry event. I promise you, if you went to a Tom Ferry event with all the people and training and stuff, you'd walk away going, hey, there were 2 or 3 things I can implement in my business. So there's always stuff you can learn no matter what, whether it's on stage or off stage. So what I want to go through is, I know some of you on here were at the event, so I'm going to start by calling on you and hearing maybe what some of your favorite takeaways were. What were some of the points that really resonated with you? And then after we go through that, I'll go through some of my big takeaways at the event. Again, whether it was stuff you heard on stage, stuff you heard on the side, on the breaks, lunches, breakfasts, things like that. I'm sure there's a variety of different things that people learned at this event. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'd like to start with those of you that went to the event. For those of you that went to the event, doesn't matter how long you went, whether it was for one day or the whole time, what were some of your favorite points? Again, either something that was on stage or something you heard off stage on lunch, breakfast, whatever. What were some of the things that resonated with you in your time there last week that you'd be open to sharing? Just unmute yourself and go for it. For those of you that were there last week.
There was so much stuff out there, it's hard to say. But the one thing that I came back with is prospecting definitely is a correlation to your compensation. You don't prospect, there's no compensation.
Yeah, and you're right. Prospecting leads that's it, leads to your compensation. And what I would add to that, thank you, Fred, it's a great point, is for some of you, you think of prospecting as, phone calls, door knocking. Yeah, for some of you, you go, wow, I'm really heavy into social media, this and that. Whatever your prospecting method is, you have to do it. Otherwise, there will be no compensation. So if you're, oh man, I'm heavy into social media, I'm heavy into this. Okay, great. Well, if you're not posting on social media and then engaging with the people that are commenting on your posts and sending direct messages, if you're not prospecting on social media, guess what? There's no compensation. You're just a professional poster. That's it. Right? There's no money involved. So it's the same thing whether you're making phone calls. So yeah, you got to connect with people. All right, what else? What else were some of your favorite points from last week? For those of you that went. Go ahead, Christine.
Mine was practicing. So,
Yeah.
after being, 10 years as a realtor, you don't practice anymore. So it's not something you really think about. And watching everyone on stage and that are doing great and listening to them, they practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
It's just something you don't really think that you have to do anymore, as time goes on. And, it really is something you still need to do. And so, yeah, that was my biggest takeaway, I think, is, practice, practice, practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I mean, I get it. We all feel like I've said the just listed script 1,000 times. I don't need to practice it. I've got that script down. Okay, great. So, Mike used to have this quote. He never did this to me, at least. So I don't know if he would ever actually do this to anyone. But if I called you at 3 o'clock in the morning and woke you up and just said, just listen, go, could you just nail it? Right. And most of us would be like, hey, what? Who's that? I just listed or I just bought. I don't know. Like we would just be groggy as all hell. Right. And it's just an example of if you're not practicing, you're always going to have those slip ups. I mean, they use the analogy. I know we've heard it 100 times, and sometimes we don't think about it in real estate, but it makes all the sense in the world. LeBron James has figured out how to play basketball. He's figured it out. Okay, he's got this figured out. Yet the guy practices 2 hours a day still. I mean, again, he's got this figured out, folks. He's got basketball figured out. And yet 2 hours a day, he's in the gym, working on his free throws, working on his jump shots, all these other different things. So, there's no reason why we can't to practice more. I actually wrote something down in regards to that, but we'll get to that later. Good job. What else? For those of you that went, what were some of your main takeaways?
I've got one also. For me, it was create a strong morning routine. It was also a strong schedule to keep on track. And
Sure.
and that sounds really simple, like, oh, just put your schedule down. However, for me, it's a funnel, right? So
Mhm.
because we've been talking about that and through that meeting, well, how many calls you have to make to have how many appointments, to have how many presentations, to have how many actual, listings. So that's I created that whole thing for myself today, all the way down to a daily schedule. So anyway, I'm stoked about that.
Good job. Job. It's funny. You're the first real estate agent I've ever heard that has a problem with scheduling. So, but it's important, right? It's important. They didn't say this on stage, but just for a scheduling standpoint, here's one of the lines that I always thought was the power of a schedule is if you don't have a schedule, it'll take you 12 hours to work an 8-hour day. But if you have a schedule, you can work an 8-hour day in 8 hours. When people say, oh my gosh, I'm working, 12, 14 hours a day. It's like, yeah, but you probably could have got that done in 8. You just didn't have a super tight schedule to follow. And so I think it's great putting something like that down together. And look, in real estate, so one of the reasons people don't create schedules in real estate is they go, well, sometimes this comes up. Sometimes, yeah, I get it. You're going to put together a schedule and you're not going to be able to follow it 100% of the time because things come up. But if you put together a strong schedule, you should be able to follow it at least 75% of the time. I refuse to believe that more than once a week something comes up that just has to throw you off your schedule. If you're really honest about it. All right, good job. What else? What else did we get? What were some of the other takeaways that people got last week that went?
First of all, this is Gloria.
Hi, Gloria.
First of all, we have to have a business plan and then a goal and then a schedule of activities every day towards a goal.
Yeah,
And we have to have positive mindset,
sure.
positive attitude, and positive mindset. And then we have to hold ourselves accountable towards that goal.
Yeah. Yep. Great point. Look, and for some of you, it's the activities are what determines the mindset, and for some of you, it's the mindset that determines the activities. So either way, you got to get involved for something. Because for some of you, if you don't start with the mindset, it's the Tony Robbins technique, right? It's if I have a bad mindset, a poor mindset, I won't have the confidence to do the activities. And because I won't do the activities, I won't generate any business. And because I don't generate any business, I won't generate any income. And then because of that, I have a poor mindset, right? It's just a circle. As opposed to if I have a positive mindset, if I work on my mindset first and I'm positive, I'll do more activities because I'm confident and excited. More activities will lead to better results, which will then lead to more income, which then feeds back into the positive mindset. So it's that circle. But for some of you, as you know, Brady said, for some of you, you just got to get in motion. Neil says this all the time: when the body's in motion, the mind will follow. And Brady said that on stage too, is that sometimes you just got to get in motion. You just got to get going, right? Just start doing activities, get out there and preview houses, do something, to try to get the mind going. But yeah, very, very important things. Good stuff. All right, what else? What else did we get? What else did we get out of last week for those of you that went?
I'll go.
Go, Shelley.
Obviously, being a team lead, I liked what he said about there's not a bad audience; it's just a bad presentation. Because
Sure.
obviously I hear that a lot. Is like the leads are bad. It wasn't a good day of calling, or nobody answered, or they did and then didn't want to talk. So I just really came back with just fine tuning the presentation. And in order for our team to do the goals that we are setting, we need to be super efficient with our presentations and our conversations. So it was awesome. I had a great time.
Yeah. There's no such. I wrote that down too. There's no such thing as a bad audience, just a bad presentation.
Lack of preparation.
Yeah. The seller, they were upset for no reason. It's like, they probably didn't start upset. It was probably the way you said something or way you made them feel, things along those lines. You know what? God, I just can't get my TC is just not getting it. They don't know what they're doing. My buyer's agent, my assistant, they just don't know what they're doing. Well, I mean, I'm sure they're not stupid. I'm sure they could figure this stuff out, but are you presenting to them in the right way? Are you giving them the right material? So, it's a reminder to Shelley's point on it's sometimes bad presentation. Everything we do is a presentation. Okay. We think about presentation. Oh, listing presentation. Showing offers is a presentation. Showing homes is a presentation. A buyer consultation's a presentation. I mean, everything is a presentation. When you're trying to teach your TC how to do things your way, that's a presentation. When you're trying to get your assistant or whatever to do something the way you want done, that's a presentation. Everything we do is a presentation. So if things aren't getting done the way that you want, before you get mad at the person that's not getting it done the way you want, think about, well, how did I present the information?
Yeah.
It's a great point. Great point. That works in dating too, just in case anyone here is interested in that.
No, even in coaching, when I'm coaching my agents, it's like I have to be prepared to have my one-on-ones.
The third, Chris, no, it's been.
He brings up a good point, but we'll move on. All right, good job. All right, what else? What else did we get out of that? What else did we get last week for those of you that went?
I don't know if it was mentioned, Rob, but marketing your keeping track of your stats, keeping track of your stats on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Know your numbers.
I got to tell you, let me tell you all something from a coaching standpoint. It's really, really difficult to coach agents who don't track their numbers and don't know their numbers. I mean, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, we do it, but it makes it a lot harder. And let me give you the easiest example of that. Is if you come to me, for example, and you say, I'm just, for some reason, I can't get listings. I'm going on appointments. I'm not getting listings. If I don't have the numbers and I don't know how many appointments you're really going on and how many presentations you're setting, if I don't know all that, I can, here's how you make a stronger presentation. Here's how you do this. I can train and stuff like that. But if you don't know your numbers, it's hard for me to focus on some of those things where if you said, hey, look it, So far in the last 6 months, I've set 20 listing appointments. I've gone on 10 and I've only taken 2. So clearly I have a closing problem. That's not where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with a pre-qualifying, because I'm going to wonder, first of all, are the appointments you're going on actually motivated people, or are you just going on? And so we're going to work on the pre-qual before we go anywhere else. We're going to talk about motivation, because you might not be going on, you might be setting appointments or going on appointments that aren't really that motivated. So I'm going to start with the pre-qual and go from there. And then we're going to start on the presentation. Well, when do we get to closing? Well, if you pre-qual correctly and give a great presentation, closing's easy. So, but if I don't know your numbers and I don't know those things, it's hard. It makes it harder. So yes, tracking your stuff, even outside of a coaching standpoint, just being honest with yourself, right? Good stuff. All right, what else? I think Vanessa, I think you were going to say something.
Okay.
Or somebody else could say
Yes.
something.
So, Robert, what I took away, of course, everyone's mentioning great points, but to be highly disciplined, it could
Mhm.
be from time management to schedule, right? And even pre-qualifying the client, because you need to know their motivation on selling or not selling. So, either you solve the problem in which they hire you, or they're going to hire someone who's going to really, they can trust and solve it for them. So be
Yeah.
the agent who you said you were going to be in the listing presentation, and move forward and be disciplined to make sure you help your clients achieve their goals. I mean, I've learned a lot, but that's a big takeaway for me.
Yeah,
Improving myself, of course, for my clients. So
it's great. It's a great point. Every client that is actually motivated to buy or sell a house has a problem. You need to be the solution to that problem. And if you're not the solution to that problem, it's not hard for them to go find somebody else. Right? It's just not hard. So you got to be that solution to that problem. And it's funny that you said be the agent you say you're going to be, because one of the things I wrote down here as a assignment for agents is to complete your listing presentation package and actually review it and use it as an affirmation. Because in your listing presentation package, you talk about how wonderful you are and how great you are. And some of you are really wonderful and really great. Okay. But do you actually do all the things that are in that package? Do you actually believe everything that's in that package? When you put together your 18 or 21 or 33 or 27, whatever point action plan, do you actually do, with high energy, high enthusiasm, high discipline, high focus, all of the items on that action plan? Do you actually do that? Or is it just an action plan that you just, well, it's, it sounds good. Am I actually the person that is the best person to help them buy a house or sell a house? Do I really think about them first? Am I really attached? Am I not attached to the outcome, or am I actually attached to the outcome? Do I care about them, or do I care? I mean, we say all these things, but are you that person? And the more you are that person, the better off you're going to be. So so give you one other line of that. The less you care about the money, the more money you'll make. Okay. But when you're really, really tied to the money in transactions, you will do less transactions and make less money. When you remove yourself from that and you don't care about the money, you just care about the deal, you will make a crap ton more money. Promise you. So, but we all say we're not attached to the outcome. So that kind of, to Vanessa's point, is be the agent you say you are. All right, good job. What else? What other takeaways did we get? What other takeaways did we get from the event before I jump into some of my points?
Carry your goals around with you. Look at them through the day. Be consistent with that. Know why you're working
Yeah.
in the morning, in the afternoon, the evening.
Folks, if you don't know what you're going to exchange the money for, you're not going to do the work. Okay. I say that all the time, and I mean it 100%. Hold on 1 second. I turned on my light because it was too dark and now my lights are going out. Maybe that's why I had the lights out to begin with. All right. So it's just going to look like I have a tan today. But you've got to create goals that really have an emotion with you. But then to Valerie's point, you got to carry them with you all the time. You know, we set goals and then, all right, I did my business plan. I've got these goals. I've got these plans. That's great. Ooh. And then like by March, I'm like, hey, when's the last time you looked at your goals? Well, when we did the business plan. All right, good start. So if it's out of sight, out of mind, you got to create those goals that create an emotional attachment with you and carry it around with you all the time. So if you work out of the office, it should be on your desk. If you work from home, your desk there. Have them with you in your car. Have them with you, print out, Ron Cronin used to do this where he would print out a 1-page sheet of his goals and his business plan condensed down to 1 page. He'd fold it up, put it in his pocket, and all day long, he kept taking it out of his pocket, unfolding it, put it back in his pocket, take it out of his pocket, unfold it. He would just look at it constantly throughout the day to the point where by the end of the day, the paper was worn that he'd have to print out a new one the next day. You got to have those goals in front of you all the time that creates some sort of an emotional attachment. You won't do the work. It's not a shot at you. I won't do the work either. I don't want to hear no all day. Okay. I don't. I live in Los Angeles. There's so many things I'd rather do than be on the phone. Okay. But I got to be on the phone. I got to be doing those things in order to make the money to go do the things that I want to do on my free time. But if you don't have those goals, man, it's tough. So like the one guy, what he did is he would write on that 3x5 card, right? He'd write his 3 goals, listings taken, units closed, GCI for the year. He'd write out on a 3x5 card, put it on the desk. The next morning he'd come in, he would tear that one up, write them out again, and then put them out. So every day he was literally writing his goals every day, right? I mean, talk about keeping that fresh in your head. Pretty cool. All right. Who else? Who else wants to share what they got out of last week?
I want to share, Robert.
Go, Patty.
Hi. Thinking big. I haven't thought about that in a long time. And seeing Bernie Gallerini and Josh Barker up there talking about like their $60 million that he made and the car that he bought. And I'm like, wow, I'm thinking so small.
Yeah.
I thought it's really eye-opening to remember how much you can really get with this kind of a job.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And it was interesting, Patty. One of the notes I wrote down that it wasn't anything someone said on stage, but I wrote this down was, is there anything that's been presented on stage that we just absolutely can't do? Like they're not doing, like no one has said anything where you're like, well, Jesus, I can't do that. I mean, he's doing, that type of presentation. He's using that script. I just can't do that. There was nothing on stage that was presented that was like, we can't do. But yet some of these people do it. And to your point, they think bigger and they just keep going bigger and they're making, $1 million. They're making 500,000, whatever your number is, you could do more. So for some of you, you might hear, someone like Bernie Gallerini say, oh, over the course of my career, I've made $60 million. You might be thinking, well, gosh, I've made 60. Not 60 million, I've just made 60, and 60 million just seems so outrageous, of a number. Well,
that's big.
Maybe it is, but how about we start at 200,000? How about we start at, if you're already at 200, how about get to 500? How about if you're already at 500, how about get to 1 million? Like, there's numbers that are possible. I mean, if someone can make 60, then that means there's plenty of people making 200.
Yeah.
But we just have to think bigger, want bigger, and, part of it is we're just spoiled in California. We're just spoiled. We just are so spoiled that, life is already pretty good here. You make a little bit of money, life's pretty good here in California. When you live, What's that?
You said it, Robert. We
Yeah,
come
it's
from another country. We see the opportunities that we can get in California.
yeah. Yeah. California is just, we got it pretty good here. You make a little bit of money, you can live a really good life and all these things. Whereas in some of these other states, I mean, in Nebraska, you have to be a millionaire because what do you like in order to live any type of nice life there, and I apologize for those of you that are from Nebraska, right on. But you got to make a lot of money in Nebraska in order to have a really nice life because you got to do you can't just have everything at your disposal though. You have to be able to go travel. You have to be able to, do private flights. Same thing if you live in a lot of these other places. I mean, Bernie lives in Tennessee. No, I mean, but he doesn't live in like Nashville. He lives in like a small town in Tennessee, which again, no hate, but you got to make a lot of money because you got to be able to travel and go do other things there. In California, you don't have to travel anywhere. You make a few bucks and, as long as you can pay your bills, you can go to the beach, you can go hiking, you can go skiing. That's one of the problems we have is we're just really, we're spoiled here in California. So we have to think bigger. We have to think outside the box. Good point. Yeah, thinking big is really, really important. Good stuff. All right. Who else? Anyone else want to share what they got out of it or any of their favorite takeaways? All right. So let me add a few of mine here to this list. So they talked about practice, right? Practice being really, really important. And one of the lines that was said at the event was practice like your paycheck depends on it because it does. Practice like it's the championship because for your clients it is. And it is just a reminder of the importance of that practice. Look, we live in a world now where information is so easy to get. And so what I mean by that is buyers and sellers who are going to try to buy or sell a house, they're doing research online and they can find information. They know what's going on in the market. They've got all the stats. They've got all those things, which means you can't just wing it. You can't just kind of stumble onto something because they don't know the answer to. Okay. Like I don't know a lot of doctor stuff. So if my doctor went, well, you got a torn ligament in your left bracharium bone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, fix it. I don't know. I don't know what you just said, but fix it, right? But in real estate, they have access to everything. So if you're like, what they say, well, hey, what's going on in the market? Because I heard this, and you go, oh, well, market's hot. And it's like, you're fired. You want to talk about hot? You're fired. Like, right? Because you're not presenting anything to me. You're not showing me any value. So you have to practice these conversations. You have to practice the conversation of showing offers, presenting a house, because they have access to all this information. They're expecting you to be boom, boom, boom on top of your game because they were able to find everything. They know everything about the market. You should be able to answer their questions really, really quickly, but you have to be able to practice those conversations. Same thing too. They have access to other real estate agents. It's not like it was years ago where if you didn't like this agent, the difficulty of finding another agent that might be any good was a little bit tougher. Now you can, within seconds, I can go online and find someone who's got a bunch of 5-star reviews, someone who's number one, someone who's got a listing in the area. I mean, I could do all this easily. So if you're not showing value with what you're saying, I'll just go find another agent. Okay, so practice has become so important in having these conversations, especially if you're going after outside your database. So you really do need to practice like your paycheck depends on it, and then practice like it's the championship, because for your clients, it is. This is their largest financial asset. They deserve, everyone needs to understand this, they deserve someone who's giving their absolute best. It is their largest financial asset. by a long shot. They deserve someone who takes this seriously, someone who's practiced their skills, someone who knows their numbers. Like, this is their championship. They deserve someone to have their back that takes this job really seriously. And let's be honest, if you don't practice, you're not really taking the job that seriously. Okay. And one of the things I wrote down here, I wrote down practice to performance ratios. So if you think about it, here's what I wrote down. So follow me on this. A football team, and I know the numbers, Mike says the numbers even bigger, but a football team typically practices about 40 hours for a 1 hour game. Okay, so they practice 40 hours for a 1 hour game. So their practice to performance ratio is 40-1. Okay, 40 hours practice, 1 hour game. Actors and actresses rehearse 10 hours for a 30-minute show. So their practice to performance ratio is 20-1. What is your practice to performance ratio for listing presentations? Because if your listing presentation is 30 minutes and you want to have a 20-1 ratio like the actors and actresses rehearsing, then you need to do 10 hours of practice for every 30-minute listing presentation. Or how about even 10-1 ratio practice to performance? Then you can do 5 hours of practice for every 30-minute presentation. Are you doing that? Because people that are making millions of dollars are doing that practice to performance ratio. What is your practice to performance ratio? Be an interesting thought process. But practicing really is that much more important. All right, good stuff here. A couple other things I wrote down is in terms of contacting people. So, because we think, oh my gosh, I could only get 3 contacts in today. I can only make 5 calls, 10 calls. This really boils down to a time management issue. And one of the things I wrote down, so Jean Tanner was one of the agents that was on stage. And she says her database is about 4,500 people. You know, I didn't get into the details as far as like, what does that consist of? She has done a lot of business for a lot of years, but it's 4,500. But she says she calls 20% of her database every month. So I did the math on that. 20% out of 4,500 is 900, which means according to her, she calls 900 people in her database every month. Now, that seems to me, I'll be honest, a little unrealistic. Okay, 900 a month seems like a lot because you'd have to be essentially making, 40 calls a day, 40 to your database, which a lot of them are going to pick up. But even if we cut that in half, 450, she's making even on that, she'd be making 450 calls to her database a month, which if you, on average, there's about 20 working days a month. You might work more, you might work less, but 20, which means she's calling 23 people from her database a day. So if she can call 23 people from her database a day, even while still doing 50, 60 plus deals a year herself and running a team, why can't you call 23 people from your database a day? And why can't you call whatever number that is? It's possible to do. Well, Robert, I talked to my database and, those calls go on for 30 to 45 minutes. Well, that's because you don't want to make any more calls. That's why your database calls go on so long. Okay? Because I talk to you all the time and you have no problem ending calls with me. So I know you are a professional at ending phone calls. So if your database calls are going on for 30 to 45 minutes, it's because you don't want to make any more calls. Right? You just gotta make the calls. You gotta get in front of more people. Okay, that's what somebody had said of, it's that's what Fred said at the very beginning. Like there's a correlation to Your prospecting and your compensation. I mean, she's doing it. Got to get in front of more people. I don't want to hear, oh, I only made 3 calls today, 5 calls, 10 calls. It's like, okay, great. Well, that's fine, but don't send me a business plan that you want to do 10 deals. Like, let's just be realistic. Let's try to do a couple deals, right? And for, yeah, thank you, Alicia. And if you're like, well, Robert, how do I get these people off the phone? Blame it on me. Hey, sorry, I got to go, but my manager's calling. We have a meeting coming up, but I really appreciate your time. Right? Blame it on me. Okay. Don't call the spouse next though. Right? Because then the spouse is going to be like, well, that's weird. I thought they had a meeting to go to. It just turns out they just hung up on me. Right? But you could do it. The next thing I wrote down here is, this was also said, there's no secret system, just do it. There's no secret system, just do it. And I wrote that down and I highlighted it because, again, it's for everybody. Everybody is, well, I don't really like door knocking, or I love door knocking, or I don't really like being on the phones, or I love being on the phones. And you know what? I'd rather, do passive marketing and maybe do social media, open house. I don't care. Just go do it. Robert, what CRM's the best? Whichever one you're currently using. You're probably not utilizing much of it anyways. Just use that one. What time should I prospect? Now's good. Right? What sources should I work? All of them. Just pick one. Okay. Put them all in a bowl and pick one out, and that's your source for today. I don't care. Right? There's no, well, what dialer should I use? Where should I get the phone numbers? Like, we're asking way too many questions. Just go do it. Pick a dialer and go. Pick a neighborhood and go knock. Pick a marketing plan and go for it. Pick an area and farm it. I don't care. Just go. We're doing way too much effort before we just go get into action. Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Yeah. Like, we're just go. There's no secret system. I wish I could tell you, all right, folks, if you use this dialer and get these phone numbers and use these scripts on these sources, everyone on here is going to make $1 million this year. And then you won't see me for a while. Okay. Because if everyone in our company was making $1 million, you would not see me for an extended period of time. All right. I would be gone for a while. Okay. Right. I wish I could say that and be true and be like, hey, no, we're done. But there isn't. So just go. There's no secret system. Just go do it. Figure it out as you go along. Make adjustments as you go along. Right? But just do those types of things. All right. Good stuff. All right. A couple other things I wrote down here. Right. I like this one because I think this was relevant to today's market in terms of pricing. And this is something that Dan Mum said on stage. He says, if you take a listing, but the listing's not going live for a couple weeks, he said, you've already agreed on the price at the listing presentation, but if it's not going live for a few weeks, do another CMA right before it goes live and adjust the price if necessary. Because what I see sometimes is we agree on a price, and let's say it's, $1 million. But it's not going live for a few weeks, right? It happens all the time. That's part of the gig. Well, sometimes we do that and it goes live at $1 million and we go, gosh, I'm not getting any action on it. Well, maybe it's because right before we went live, we probably should have dropped the price to $950. Okay. So in today's world, the market might be changing a little bit in some of your areas. So if you're not going to put the listing on for a few weeks, do another CMA right before it goes online. So, and then make the adjustments if necessary. That might save some of our problems. All right, good stuff. All right, next one I wrote down that I thought was a really good point, and again, in regards to today's world, is quality service is something that always has to be upgraded. Quality service is something that always has to be upgraded. And what the note I put underneath that is the world constantly changing? and people's demands are changing, and people's lifestyles are changing, and what they read is changing. Everything's changing. So what I wrote down here is, what has changed in the world that has changed your perception on something, and are you adjusting your service and your business to things like that? So let me give you an example. Would be, I say this all the time, but on the plan of action, the old Mike Ferry plan of action, it says stay in touch with your clients once a week. Okay, now let's fast forward to July 28th, 2025. If I was on a listing appointment and I told the seller, you will hear from me once a week, you think they're going to be okay with that, or you think they're going to want more? They're going to want more, a lot more. Okay, but 15 years ago, 20 years ago, once a week was fine. Now, no, I want it. Some of them want it every day. Some of it want it a couple times a day or a couple times a week, right? Like the world has changed. So you need to upgrade your service. Whatever it may be, you need to constantly upgrade the service that you provide. It's no longer once a week. How about upgrading your marketing material? Everyone searches online for everything. When you go on a listing appointment or you're going to meet someone for a buyer consultation, is it possible that they're going to do a little research on you? Yes. The answer is yes. For some of you that are like, I don't know, the answer is yes. Okay. Okay. And for those of you that ever decide to get out of real estate and want to go apply for a job, I promise you that employer is also going to do some online research on you. It's just life. So my point is, part of your service needs to be, are you upgrading your online profile? How does your website look? How does your headshot look? How does your headshot look? For some of you, how does your headshot look? Have I said, how does your headshot look? Okay. Some of you have beards. Okay, now some of you have no hair now. Some of you, the hair color has changed, right? Some of you have lost a ton of weight, all right? So how is your online profile? Is that being upgraded? Or are you still using dinosaur stuff? All right, well, then your service isn't as great. So you have to constantly be upgrading with what's going on in the world. Because you do, and I challenge you, because you would do the same thing, right? If an insurance person said, hey, I've got the best life insurance plans, can I come over? Guaranteed you'd be on Google as they were talking. What was your name again? Oh, Robert Hertel. Oh, I can't find you anywhere. Next, no way you're coming inside my house. But you go on like, holy cow, this guy's the #1 insurance agent in the world. Look at his website. He's so cool. And he's got all these videos. This is great. Come on over. Okay. Got to upgrade your service. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff going on there. All right. We only have a couple more minutes, so I'm just going to share a couple more things here that really stood out to me. One was, I'll just keep this one really simple. It's amazing how many times I heard on stage and just having lunch with people and things like that, I heard, in terms of service, call them before they call you. It's amazing how many times I've heard that. Call them before they call you. Okay. So if you want to have great service, do that. And then I'll leave a couple more things here. Brady Sandall said, do your 3 G's every morning: gratitude, goals, and grit. So your gratitude, what you're thankful for, your goals, make sure you're reading your goals, and your grit. What are you going to do to take massive action today? But every single morning, do those 3 things. Go over your gratitude, your goals, and your grit. Right? I thought that was powerful. Sam Williams talked about on stage that he does his affirmations when he's driving his daughter to school, and his daughter has picked up on those affirmations, so she does it with you. I also take my daughter to school. I kid you not. When we got to, because she wants to listen to her music, which she heard some 80s radio the other day, like accidentally. And so she heard Karma Chameleon. That's all she wants to listen to, like on repeat. If you've never heard that song, you don't have to listen to it. But she loves that damn song, right? So after we listened to Karma Chameleon, I said, all right, Cambria, we're going to do affirmations. And she goes, what are those? And I told her, and I said, all right, today's going to be a great day. And she goes, today's going to be a great day. And I just went through like 4 or 5 affirmations, and she's just doing them with me. So, you know, it was like a cool little moment. And it's funny, it actually made me feel really great. Like, wow, what a great day. This is fantastic. I'm doing affirmations with my daughter. She probably forgot them as soon as we were done, but that's not the point. But, but you got to do your gratitude, your goals, your grit every day to remind yourself why you're doing it, what you're thankful for. You got a lot of great things, and what you're going to do to take massive action, you know? Last thing I want to mention here, and this was actually something that happened on stage, off stage. And I know we're right at 1 o'clock, and we're going to do multiples of this, and we're going to do this in the offices locally as well, because there's all kinds of great things and everyone else does things. But one little note I want to bring up to everybody here is, don't ever let, well, first of all, be mindful of how people are talking about you, and don't ever let anyone get away with saying stuff that you're not okay with. And here's what I mean. To give you an example. So I was at the gym, and I was on the treadmill in the morning, and there was this guy walked by, and a guy I've known for a while, and he was walking with another guy, and he introduced me, and I was on the treadmill, so I couldn't really say anything, but as we were walking by, he's like, oh, that's Robert Hertel, that's so and so. And then he said something, and he was saying it as a joke, but it was very inappropriate, to the point to where the guy walking with him looked at me like, wait, that's the kind of person you are? And I was annoyed as all hell when that happened. And I finished my workout. And then afterwards, before I left the gym, I went up to the guy who he introduced me to. And I went up to him and said, hey, man, I just want to reintroduce myself, because the way that you were introducing me the first time, the guy was joking, but it was very inappropriate. I want to make sure you don't have the wrong idea of the type of person that I am. And the guy shook me. He goes, actually, I'm really glad you came up to me, because I know who you are. I've heard of you. And I always had a different mentality of you. And then when the guy just said that about you, I kind of had a different mentality about you. And he goes, so I appreciate that you came up to me and kind of cleared the air a little bit. And I said, yeah, no problem. And then I just got in a conversation with him. I said, hey, let me get your name again. What's your card? What's your so-and-so? And then we started a conversation. And then now, like, the guy, he emailed me, wants to get involved with like some like referrals and things like that. So I turned it around to a positive thing. And then but then after that, I went to the guy that introduced me. I said, don't ever fucking do that again. And I apologize for the language, but that's what I told him. I said, either ignore me or introduce me the way that I'm supposed to be introduced. I go, either one is fine. Okay, I don't need any friends. So you can just ignore me if you want to. That's fine. Or introduce me this way. And he's like, oh, and he got defensive, like, oh, I was just joking. I was like, I know you were just joking, but you set me up for failure, and that's not okay, because now you're messing with my business and my life. So while you think you were joking, you're screwing with me, and I don't like that. I don't play that way. So either ignore me or introduce me the way you're supposed to. And he said, okay. Now, I don't know if going forward he's going to ignore me or introduce me the way he's supposed to, and I don't really care. But you have to be careful about the way that people are perceiving you, even if it's online, right? You do something online and someone makes a joke about it. Well, that's typical them, blah, blah, blah. And it's like some joke. Well, people read that stuff. And that's creating a perception about you. And so even if your friends are joking, like, oh, this one right here, and they say a joke about you, you never know who's listening. You don't know what people are taking about that. And if I had not approached that person afterwards to say, hey, I know you got to introduce me the wrong way, that after that retreat, they would have had a totally different perception of me. And because I'm also kind of the face of the company, a whole different perception of Century 21 Masters. And luckily we got that back. But it made me think about how many times are people making jokes about us online or in person or things like that. And even though they're joking, people are listening. And that's your perception and your brand. And you have to be just be careful of that. Don't ever let people interrupt your brand, interrupt who you are as a person, to where it could affect you in your business, because your business equals then your life. And that's how I took it. And that's why I told that guy, don't ever do that ever again. Okay. Because you're messing up my life. It's not funny to me. Right. So just be careful about that. And don't be afraid to confront people that aren't doing it the right way. All right. Good stuff. But lots of positive things, lots of notes. I wrote down a bunch of stuff from the company as well that I'll be putting together for everyone in the company. I'm putting together some new reports that I'm going to do. So you're going to get a whole plethora of stuff from me, just in case you ever get tired of me. I'm just going to put it all in a database, and that way you don't have to call me. It's all there for you. But lots and lots of really great things. So I'm excited for it. All right, everybody, good stuff. It's 1:04. So for those of you that went to the retreat, grab 1 or 2 things that you got from yourself, implement those right away. After you implement those, go implement 1 or 2 more. And then for those of you that weren't at the retreat, hopefully you got a couple nuggets from this one today to implement in your business. And then if you need more, reach out to me, reach out to your directors, your advisors, because they were there. They've got these notes. And if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're going to be going around to the offices and teaching this classes as well. And if they're not doing that, let me know, because then I will have a different conversation with them. All right, everybody, keep up the great work. Go get it.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.